you got some Republicans in Georgia. They're pissed off at Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA, because she dared indict Donald Trump and 18 others on RICO charges. Georgia State Senate Majority Leader Steve Gooch said in a recent interview that Republican leaders could hold hearings into whether Willis is using her position in a political manner for accusing Trump and his 18 co-defendants of trying to overturn the 2020 election. He says he sees Senate Bill 92, a new law empowering a state panel to investigate and oust wayward prosecutors, as a powerful, quote, tool in the toolbox that, unquote, that Trump's allies can deploy to delve into Willis's use of public resources. Now, Congressman Andrew Clyde wants to use an upcoming appropriations bill to slash federal funding for attorneys who've dared to charge Trump. Defund the cops. And also that nutcase Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's pushing for a House Judiciary Committee investigation into how much Willis's office received in federal dollars and whether it is interacted with White House officials during the state's election probe. This is real simple stuff. And again, what you see here, now here's what I love. Was this a political process? Fani Willis has an elected position. That's one. She indicted them for interfering with the election. That's political. Yeah, dumbasses, it's politics.
Yeah, but you're expecting them to be able to actually have some intelligence and to be able to use their minds and understand this process. Attorney Willis has been very clear. This is about the facts and the law. And if Donald Trump hadn't done what he did, allegedly, then he wouldn't be in this situation that he finds himself in. And these folks would not need to try and manipulate the system to gain some power over what's actually going on. So anytime you talk about appropriations and being able to utilize those and take those away from those who you feel are not in alignment with what you believe in, then we have a problem. We have a problem because that takes us back in history when folks used to control the company's store. And if you were a black person who wasn't doing or saying what they wanted, then they could cut you off, or a local bank. So we see these types of dynamics that have played out decade upon decade, century upon century, and now they are bringing it forward again in 2023 and trying to use it as a tool of manipulation.
The Georgia Speaker of the House, Rebecca, John Burns, gotta give him credit. This is what he actually said. A select few, go to my iPad, a select few are calling to defund a duly elected district attorney of this state and her office in an attempt to interfere with the criminal justice system. Regardless of your views of this case, removing this funding would also have the unintended consequence of causing a delay or complete lack of prosecution of other serious offenses like murder, rape, armed robbery, gang prosecution, battery, etc. If we are concerned about the levels of serious crime in Atlanta, this move would obviously be harmful to the public safety. It is unfortunate some would knowingly suggest such a reckless course of action despite the devastating effects it would have. Now, this is what, and then he says, while we as the General Assembly do have appropriating power over any agency or branch of state government to reduce the pay of an individual DA, is wrong. Thank God you got a sensible Republican in Georgia, Rebecca.
So, I have a few friends from law school who are prosecutors in Georgia, and I had this conversation with them last month once that bill was passed, which actually allows for the task force to review at what level are certain things prosecuted, what are prosecutions that are ignored or passed on, really undermining prosecutorial discretion in Georgia. And one of my questions to them was, what are the large firms saying about this? I would think any large or even national firm in Georgia will have a dedicated interest in making sure that the judiciary in Georgia is protected. Or even what is the Georgia Bar Association saying about this? Because regardless of your politics, you do not want Georgia lawmakers deciding that they want to undermine and determine how prosecutors choose to charge in some cases and decline to charge in other cases.
Here's what Speaker Burns, go back to my iPad. Speaker Burns said, he said, by doing this, we require reducing the pay of all DAs and ADAs across the state, your circuit included, through the adoption of legislation. Targeting one specific DA in this manner certainly flaunts the idea of separation of powers, if not outright violates it. We as members of the General Assembly have sworn to uphold the Constitution of the state of Georgia, these United States, and the laws thereof. We trust that our criminal justice system will deal with this matter impartially and fairly, and we will not improperly intercede in this matter in direct contradiction to the oaths we took. Well, praise the Lord. We've seen in Texas how Republicans have targeted Harris County specifically. This is what Republicans have done. They have been so malicious that they have said, oh yeah, we're pissed off at you. We're going to target you directly.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we're going to talk about racism and the law now. And I know it's hard for you to listen to me sometimes, Roland, but you should listen.
It's hard to listen to you a lot of times, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know. But let me tell you something. Now, a prosecutor's stock and trade is their discretion. The voters of Fulton County elected her for her discretion and to keep them safe. They elected Marilyn Mosby in Maryland, Kim Foxx in Chicago. Now you have these new laws being passed when black people are being elected prosecutors. You didn't have it when they were white men and white women because they trusted the judgment of those that looked like them. But when black women and black men begin to have that power and the discretion, this legislature wants to substitute their judgment for that of Fani Willis and every other black prosecutor. You see them passing these laws now, which is wholly inappropriate because the legislature has nothing to do with the executive. The prosecutor is in the executive branch. The legislature is in the legislative branch. But you have these conservative Republicans who don't trust. Their privilege doesn't trust the judgment of a black woman in this case. Oh, and by the way, did you read the indictment against Donald Trump and those other 18 people? It was a speaking indictment. It's okay to believe that the election was stolen from you or that you won, but the affirmative acts, the factual predicate, the underlying crimes that were committed based on bad conduct of white conservatives that bring integrity to our election system, the Republicans have just completely abandoned that, and now they want to take money from black prosecutors who would dare to prosecute Donald Trump. Although he's been prosecuted 4 times, or going to be prosecuted 4 times, 91 felony counts. For him to get out of that, he got to run the table. No one in the history of America has beaten 91 felony counts. And if you don't plead out and you get convicted of one of those, 1, maybe 2 or more, you're going to jail. I don't care who you are. Donald Trump is going to jail if he gets convicted. So you juxtapose that with this discretion or this legislation that wants to cut funding. Even the feds want to cut funding from Alvin Bragg and these other folks for the audacity. Their white privilege that they did not earn is driving these legislative decisions to undermine the discretion of these very talented and brilliant black people who would dare to serve as prosecutors. That's what's going on. That's the racism, and that's the undermining of the law and the legal minds of black people who are prosecutors at the state level. It's got to stop.